Hey everybody, this is Robert from Movie Battleground. We are here once again. We have two great debuts today. This is going to be an amazing match. I'm really looking forward to it. We got a couple of great questions. These are going to be some great arguments, some great answers, and I'm really looking forward to how this one plays out. So let's just jump right into it. Introducing first, with making his Movie Battleground debut, we have the Canadian Nightmare, Mark Boric.
Welcome, everybody. Watch me take down.
And his opponent, also making his Movie Battleground debut, is Chris C-Dub Woodburn.
What's cracking, fellas? Ready to get down to some good old-fashioned debating, and best of luck to you, Mark.
Alrighty, so for those of you watching who don't really know how this works, here is how it's going to go. For the first question, I'm going to list off a question. Each of these guys are going to give their answers in a short opening statement, and then we're going to go into an open forum style debate. Try not to interrupt each other too much, but it's a debate show. It happens. So for the first question, we're going to argue for 6 minutes in the open forum, do closing arguments, and I'll give my ruling. And then we'll continue for that. We have at least 4 main round questions, and then if necessary, we'll go to the speed round as well. So let's just kick it off right away with the first question, which is, what is the worst indie film? What is the worst independent film? We're going to start opening arguments. We will go Mark first. So Mark, go ahead with your opening argument.
The question is, what is the worst indie film? Is there any other question? This is considered by everybody to be the worst film ever made. It's got terrible acting. The storyline makes no sense at all. Stuff happens you see scenes that make no sense. And it's so bad that it's good. It's got a cult following. That's not true at all. My answer is The Room. Tommy Wiseau's The Room.
All right. Strong opening argument. Gave a couple good reasons there. And we're going to hop on over to Chris, who's going to give your opening argument for your pick. What is the worst indie movie?
I think it is without question the piece of garbage film that was released in 2001, The Blair Witch Project, Book of Shadows. The reason that this film fails on every level is because it completely has nothing to do with the story from the original.
All right, nothing to do with the story. All right, that's a good hit. So now what we're going to do, I'll set my timer. We'll hop into an open forum. You guys can debate it out. Make sure you get plenty of points in to support your pick and to attack the other's pick. And you have 6 minutes starting now.
Okay, with The Room. Like I said, I consider it the worst movie. People enjoy it because of how absolutely horrendous it is, and they're somehow able to get a laugh out of it. Unfortunately, with me, it's taken me like 10 sit-ins just to try to watch it all the way through. It's got terrible acting. Like, not one character in that movie is good. Not one actor. The scenes are so jumbled that a lot of times make no sense. There's multiple mood changes in the scene that happen for no reason. Like one of the opening scenes, like when Tommy Wiseau's characters go into the balcony, he's being accused of domestic abuse, and he's all upset and frustrated and a little mad, and all of a sudden he goes, "Oh, hey, Mark," and he's all happy again. How that mood change makes no sense. There's scenes that are in there for no reason. Like there's the one scene where all of a sudden the kid who always carries a football around with him for some reason Mark Wiseau and the kid are just tossing the football back and forth, talking about nothing at all. Recently, I rewatched it, and It took me 2.5 sittings to get through, just because I had to force myself to watch it so I can be prepared for this movie Battleground matchup. That was incredibly painful. Yes, The Blair Witch is probably a bad sequel, but as a movie that it's not good, but you can watch it. You can watch it all the way through. Does it stand up to the original? No, because the original was really a trendsetter for the found footage movies. Does it live up? Unfortunately, no. Is there bad acting or anything like that? Yeah, it's a horror movie, especially an independent horror movie. You don't really expect a lot there. You expect to see like some thrills, a little bit of horror.
We're almost halfway through. Make sure you guys are both getting points in it. It's open forum. I'm not calling on you guys anymore.
No,
Okay, Mark.
yeah.
Mark, you make some great points as to why The Room is the worst indie film, but I gotta counter you by saying, yes, The Room is garbage. But the reason why Blair Witch 2 is even a bigger piece of shit is for the reasons you stated. The original Blair Witch reinvigorated the genre and introduced us to found footage. And the original was in my opinion, a pretty damn good film. And then
Okay.
you had the sequel, which had big expectations coming off of that original, and
As
it completely shit the bed. So that's why.
as
And
most
the room had no expectations. Yes, it's a colossal fucking mess of a film, but the Blair Witch had bigger expectations, and it failed to deliver on them, and it
no,
basically killed the franchise.
that's not true because they last year they've made another movie, so the franchise obviously was not killed. It took some time, yes, but this movie's so bad that it comes down to they have to. It's so bad. The whole everything about it, from the filming to everything, it was so bad that they have to make they're making a documentary about how horrendous the filming was for The Room, and of course, like you've got the Franco brothers, and they're actually pretty good. So they're going to really make the disaster artist good, but that has nothing to do with the actual movie, The Room itself. Like, there's a sex scene in there that absolutely makes no sense. The motives of the characters are, you have no idea how they're getting to that or why they're doing anything like that. And of course, the main character is just a complete idiot and doesn't know how to. There's no redeeming qualities about the main character, Johnny. And also that it just like The Room is so horrendous to try to sit down and watch. It's so boring.
Yes, you are correct. The film is a piece of shit, and like I said, it nearly killed the franchise. Yes, we got a film 15 years later, but any kind of IP with an existent fan base will eventually come back. Case in point, Joel Schumacher nearly destroyed the Batman franchise until Chris Nolan revived it. So any film franchise can eventually return at some point. So
Yeah. But you're holding Blair Witch to the expectations that you had with the first Blair Witch movie, which can be a little bit unfair. However, is it the worst independent movie that's ever been created? No, not even close. I've seen a lot worse. Look at a bunch of those horror or spoof movies. Though, like Meet the Spartans, State movie, any of those movies that are like that is so much worse than Blair Witch 2.
All right, I'm gonna have to call it right there. Call it right there. We're going to go into closing arguments, and we're gonna start with Mark. Go ahead and give your closing argument, then we'll hop over to Chris, and we'll call it there.
Okay, as I was saying, when it comes to The Room, the movie, unless you're going into it to make fun of it and try to, you're going in there with buddies to watch it and try to have a good time laughing at how bad and how horrendous the scenes, the acting, the script, the mood changes, like in each scene, like that you're making fun of everything that makes sense. And as Chris said, the room is an absolutely disaster of a movie. It is a shit pile, and for the most part, it is unwatchable, bad acting, and unfortunately, it's got a cult following because of how terrible it is, and that might be a little bit of redeeming factor for some people. Without a doubt, that is not me. It's so hard to sit down and watch it.
All right, good closing, and then we're gonna hop it over to Chris. Make sure you sum up your points really nicely, and go ahead.
I'll be honest with you guys. I have no. I think The Room is a giant piece of shit. I agree with all Mark's points. So I can't disagree that The Room isn't the worst indie film ever made. I just personally felt that The Blair Witch 2 might have the edge for all the reasons that I said. It was coming off a film that really it hit big and it surprised everybody, and then the sequel completely shit the bed and nearly killed the franchise. It took 15 years to get a new film.
All right, we're gonna call it there. I'm gonna take just a quick second to look over my notes, and then I'm gonna make a ruling. All right, so I think I'm gonna have to give the win for this question to Mark. I think both of you guys made some really, really good points. I think both of you guys supported your both arguments very, very well. I definitely liked how Mark attacked by saying, oh, just because, it may be a bad sequel, it's not necessarily the worst movie. And Chris, I felt that you caved just a little bit by saying that, yeah, his points are correct. Yeah, he was making good points, but I thought you were giving in just a little bit too much. So I'm going to have to give that one to Mark. Question 1.
All good. No problem.
We are now 1-0. The game is far from over as we jump into question 2. Question 2, you guys. Are you ready? This time we're going to start with Chris for the opening arguments as we ask ourselves, what's the best performance in a biopic in the last 10 years? Chris, take it away.
I'm going to go with Jesse Eisenberg as Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Network. I think he really delivered a great performance. He was a very likable asshole, if that's politically correct. I just thought he was fantastic in the role. Him and Andrew Garfield, who played Eduardo Saverin, complemented each other very well, and they had great chemistry.
All right, getting some good strong points there. We're going to hop over to Mark for a quick opening argument. What you got?
First, a likable asshole? Not at all. Just flat out asshole. But my answer is probably one of the greatest actors, Daniel Day-Lewis, in his performance as Abraham Lincoln, the movie Lincoln. I've seen that movie 3 times before, and another movie I just rewatched on the weekend. And my God, like everything, he is fantastic in that movie. From the speeches that he gives, the stories he tells, you feel everything. You believe everything he's saying. That's just what he's speaking. But the most powerful portion of that movie is when he's not speaking and you just watch his face, you watch his eyes, and you are just transposed into that aspect, into what's going on at that moment. And you are believing everything that he's thinking. You can hear what he's thinking. You can see the gears turning. Without a doubt, that is at least my personal opinion, best acting in a biopic in the last 10 years, probably of all time, without a doubt, is Daniel Day-Lewis as Abraham Lincoln in Lincoln.
Alrighty, good opening arguments from both of you. We're going to go into the open forum session once again. Make sure you guys are both getting points in. So we're just going to keep arguing. Make sure you tackle each other, support your own. You have 5 minutes this question, and go ahead.
Okay, so The Social Network was a film that me personally, I had very little expectations for this film, and what I ended up getting
How did you have no
was
expectations for that film?
yeah, I had very low expectations for that film. I didn't know how good a Facebook movie would actually be. But what Jesse Eisenberg was able to accomplish in that film, it completely blew me away. I thought he had just all the right mannerisms to play Mark Zuckerberg, and I felt his pain in that film, and how it was he ended up kind of becoming an asshole and fucking over some of his friends. I thought he was fantastic in the role.
Day one. There's not one point in that movie that he's not an asshole. He is very dislikable in that movie.
I disagree. I think he was a likable asshole, for me anyway.
Oh, I guess that kind of says something about you. But no, I'm sorry. When it comes to him as a likable asshole from day one, one of the opening scenes is where he's not really listening to his girlfriend in the bar, and then like just ignoring her, and then going on like at the time the social media page website for the campus and just ragging on her. I don't see how that's likable at all. He's just flat out an asshole, and it is good acting in it. There's not a lot of acting growth in that movie. He stays the same a lot. He's really good. Don't get me wrong. He's really good, but there's no progression in that film from Jesse Eisenberg. And in all honesty, Andrew Garfield is my personal favorite part of that movie. He is likable. He's trying to help out his friend Jesse Eisenberg. The whole story. The story that they tell in there is that Zuckerberg is jealous of Eisenberg for getting involved in that fraternity and just like taking it, mentally taking it out on everyone around him that he was not a part of that fraternity. When it comes to Daniel Day-Lewis as Lincoln, everything about his performance in that movie is completely believable. Normally, I don't like to hear about how actors go method, like Jared Leto. Don't get me started on that guy being method acting, but when Daniel Day-Lewis does it, you believe everything that's going on in the movie. You believe everything he's saying, everything he's thinking, his thought process, his facials, his mannerisms. Just embodied Abraham Lincoln in that film. And unfortunately, I've never seen Andrew Zuckerberg in the real life or anything like that, so I don't know how good he embodied him in real life. Just because like he is kind of a private person. You don't really see a lot of him publicly, so it's hard to really tell. But Abraham Lincoln, you know a lot. And I am Canadian, but Abraham Lincoln is someone that I've always loved his history and all. And I've seen a bunch of stuff, a bunch of videos, people talk about him. And the way Daniel Day-Lewis, all the puzzle pieces fit into how Abraham Lincoln was, and it was just absolutely fantastic.
I do have to disagree with you a little bit about there was no progression with Jesse Eisenberg, because later in that film, he does go to apologize to that ex-girlfriend, but she didn't want no parts of it. And he also apologized to Eduardo over the phone about the whole Justin Timberlake's Sean Parker's character, about all that. He does.
He's never said scared or anything like that about it. It's because the way he comes off in the film is always sarcastic and like I'm 100% better than you, and I should not even be associating with you. There's nothing. He's not sincere in a lot. He's only sincere in the fact that like in defending his actions, not apologizing, not feeling sorry for anyone.
All right, we got a caller right there. Call it there. We're going to go to closing arguments now. We're going to start with Chris. Make sure you guys are both getting points in against the other person's argument. And let's start it up with Chris. Closing argument.
I really felt Jesse Eisenberg's performance as Zuckerberg. The Social Network is a top 10 film all time for me, and he's one of the main reasons why. Lincoln, I can't really speak on because, unfortunately, I've never actually seen the film, and I'm sure Daniel Day-Lewis is great because I've heard that he's great in it, but I can't speak on that film, so. I thought Eisenberg was fantastic.
All right, now over to Mark for your closing argument.
Also, as he said, he's one of the. You said that he's one of the best things. He's not the best thing in your opinion about the movie, but also with Daniel Day-Lewis, there's a lot of great acting in Lincoln. Daniel Day-Lewis kills it, and he is the main focus. You believe everything that's going on in that movie. You believe his struggle to get the 13th Amendment passed, his fight to help end the Civil War the right way, instead of just like, okay, accepting a surrender, then everything going back to normal. He needed the 13th Amendment passed so that he could end slavery. And just everything, you believe his fight. His eyes, like I'm sorry, his eyes were just fantastic in that movie. All the emotion that was going through, if you just watched his eyes for the entire movie, and you get the whole story.
All right, we're gonna call it there. So I think one thing we learned is that Mark is obsessed with Daniel Day-Lewis's eyes.
They're fantastic.
Other than that, I like what Chris was saying about him being a likable asshole. Mark had a couple points against that, but then Chris also had some counterpoints, like the apology scene. Like there were some good arguments being made by Chris about how he really felt the performance. Unfortunately, Chris, I just didn't hear a lot. I know you said you haven't seen the movie, but sometimes that happens. I didn't really hear a whole lot against Daniel Day-Lewis's performance, so I'm going to have to give this one to Mark as well. From Mark, I heard a couple examples. He said Garfield was better, which was a really hard point for me. I didn't really hear a counter argument towards that point in particular, so I'm going to have to give this one to Mark as well. All right. And with that, we are 2-0 with at least 2 questions left, so it's still anybody's game. Plenty of time left. I'm just going to get my scoreboard set.
I think I'm going to win this one. I think.
This argument?
Yeah, this next one. I feel pretty good with this next one.
All right. Well, we're going to go actually to Mark to start this one off. So I'm going to read the question. This time, this is a really interesting question, one that's near and dear to my heart in particular. So let's just hear what these two guys have to say about it. Can you guys tell me what is the best post-credit scene in the MCU? What is the best post or mid-credit scene in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Mark, we'll start with you for an opening argument.
There has been a lot of great ones, but you expect it, and they're the reason why you stick around to the very end of the movie, why you watch them. But none of that would be true without the first. The first one with Nick Fury introducing himself and talking about the Avengers Initiative in the first Iron Man movie. No one expected anything like that. No one expected it to set up a universe, and it did.
All right. Strong argument on setting up the universe. Chris, we'll go to you for your opening argument, please.
My best after credit scene is the mid-credit scene for the first Avengers film, setting up Thanos, and towards that, for the past 9 years, Next year, we finally get Infinity War, and that all started with Thanos in that mid-credit scene for Avengers.
All right, that's a strong argument. Both of these, arguably the two best. Arguably the two best. And we're going to go open forum. You guys are going to have 5 minutes to battle it out. Make sure you guys both get lots of points here. Go.
Would you have expected if you were just like maybe a little bit bored, just finishing up your popcorn and just like watching all the credits, maybe to see if you saw someone that you may have known, and expected nothing really? Then all of a sudden, you see Nick Fury on there. Samuel L. Jackson is Nick Fury, and everyone in the theater when I first saw the Iron Man movie, there was gasp. There was like, what is this? Excitement. And then when he mentioned the Avengers Initiative, you could hear everyone in the theater go, oh, like, and it's like one of the first times that the whole cinematic universe got started, and it got everyone excited. It let you bring in all the characters, all the superheroes you love. Some of them you probably may not have heard of, really, and they brought them all. Talked about bringing them together as a team, and just it got you excited to watch every movie. It got you excited to stay and watch every movie to the very end to see how they're going connected this way, how they're going connected that way. And I'm sorry, when it comes to Thanos in the first Avengers movie, all he said, it introduced Thanos, yes. It's kind of been puzzle pieces in between each movie, but all he says is, fine, I'll do this myself.
Actually, I'll throw in a quick fact check. That one is at the end of Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron.
Sorry.
Avengers is where he turns around. But continue.
Okay, he turned around and he revealed Thanos. Was that great?
Okay.
It's been a lot better. Thor at the end of
Mark, you make some great points. I remember watching that first post-credit scene for the first Iron Man, and my jaw dropped when Nick Fury showed up. But we've already got an Avengers film, and then when we got that first Avengers film and Thanos showed up, everything since that film has been building towards Infinity War, which is going to be the culmination of everything that has come before it. And it just it rocked the world when that scene dropped. People went fucking gaga, and we're now 5 years in the waiting for that film next year. Infinity War is a film
when it comes to that, all he did was turn around, revealed himself, and basically said nothing. In all honesty, until I heard that they were making an Infinity War movie, I thought that was just leading up to Guardians of the Galaxy with him talking with Ronan. And we had no idea what was going on with that. He turned around, and in all honesty, with me, I really didn't know who he was at that point. It's like I heard him talk in the first Avengers movie. He was talking with the other, what we know him as now, who was guiding Loki. But other than that, I didn't really know who
the leader. The leader.
My bad. Then I thought he was called the other. But then when you go with Nick Fury and you mentioned the Avengers Initiative, if you know what that is, you know they're building up a team. You know that they're combined in all the movies. You just get excited, and it sets up the universe.
Yes. The Nick Fury mentioning the Avengers, that was a huge moment. That can't be disputed. But the Avengers teaming up for the first time, teasing that doesn't compare to all of the heroes battling Thanos. Everything has been leading to Infinity War.
You had no idea that was going to happen. He turned around. He didn't announce.
Well, I knew he. I knew he was coming eventually, and I knew exactly who he was, and I knew Thanos was coming.
Nothing of that. All he did was turn around. I thought you were going with when he was picking up the Infinity Glove. That was more impactful, and that definitely told you.
No, that was a throwaway after credit scene. I didn't even care for that one.
Him picking up the Infinity Glove tells you more that they're setting up the.
All right, gonna call it there. Call it there. We're gonna go to closing arguments. We're gonna start with Mark. I need you guys both to make sure you're getting some final hits disputing the other person's pick. And we'll start with Mark. Anytime you're ready.
Okay, like I was in the middle of saying, you're talking about like when he picked up the Infinity Glove was more throwaway than him turning around and just introducing himself. No, him picking up the Infinity Glove was more of an example of setting up the Infinity War and the Avengers coming together. When he says, "Fine, I'll do it myself," after no one's able to defeat the Avengers. All he did was turn around and he revealed himself. Yes, he didn't know where that was leading. When he picked up the Infinity Glove, you knew exactly where that was leading with just 5 seconds of research. Unfortunately, with Thanos, you're saying it leads to the Infinity War. It's the culmination. No, I'm sorry. That's not the cutscene that proved that. The cutscene that proved that was the one at the end of Ultron, and you introduced Thanos like you didn't really know anything what was going on. You didn't know what was happening, and I'm sorry. To your point, your point doesn't make sense.
Alrighty. Strong closing argument over to Chris to wrap it up.
Kevin Feige has stated that this plan of films has been in motion for 10 years. So when they introduced Thanos in the first Avengers film, they knew exactly where that was leading. Maybe the rest of the world may not have known and didn't find out till later, but they knew. And I knew that they were approaching something epic. And, the Nick Fury after credit scene, it was great. I loved it. But we got an Avengers film. An Avengers film with them finding Thanos, it's a bigger film than just the Avengers teaming up for the first time. I'm sorry. I love the first Avengers film, but Infinity War is something that everybody has been salivating for years.
All right, we're going to call it there. All right. That was probably the best fight yet of the three that we've had so far. There were a lot of great supports on both sides. Both of you guys had great supports. Chris, you were talking about how setting up the villain, it was culminating to this amazing showdown that they knew was coming. Mark, you said it initially set up the universe. It was really unexpected. Everybody was excited to stay after for the rest of them. And this one's a little bit tougher, but I think I'm going to have to go Mark again. I think Chris gave up just a little bit too much by saying that he loved the Iron Man one. I didn't hear quite enough against the Iron Man one. I said that the big hit that Chris had against Mark's was that it doesn't compare to his, but he didn't have specifics showing that. Where Mark was talking about the Ultron, for example, that was just a more specific hit against Chris's argument.
Yeah, I understand. The Iron Man after credit scene is my second favorite scene. So
with you kept talking about the Infinity War, and the one you suggested did not set up Infinity War to the entire audience. You knew it. Maybe 5% of other people knew it.
All right.
Most of the audience didn't.
All right, this one's a really fun one. I want to hear a lot of back and forth from both of you guys on this one. And there it is. All right, so question 4. We have a score of 3-0 right now, but don't worry. As long as if Chris hits here, we go into the speed round, and anything is still possible. It's happened before. So we're actually going to start with Chris for the opening arguments this time, as we ask, what franchise would be better with Tyrese Gibson?
I'm going to pick a choice, a movie that he's campaigned, that he wants to be a part of. Green Lantern. Jon Stewart.
All right, just a couple quick points of why for your opening argument.
I think Tyrese is actually an underrated actor in terms of likability. I think he brings a fresh presence to the Fast and Furious films, and I think he would be a really solid choice to play Jon Stewart.
All righty, specific character, that's great. And over to Mark, what's your pick?
My pick. I'm sorry, Tyrese Gibson. You're not that good of an actor. You a lot of times it's a lot of overacting. And with him, when it comes to a movie franchise, I'm going to rephrase the question a little bit. It's not what movie franchise will be better. Which one won't be hurt by having him involved with it? And my selection is one that has a lot of overacting, bad acting to a point in a lot of the movies nowadays. And it is Pirates of the Caribbean. Tyrese Gibson, you're being put in there. Yeah, you maybe could add a little bit of entertaining, but overall, you're not going to hurt the franchise. The people who like it, and they'll watch it regardless. So let's just throw them in that.
Alrighty, we're going to go into open forum in just a second here, and I know, Mark, you were changing the question just a little bit, so I have to reiterate that it is which franchise would be most improved. That is the point we're arguing. You can use semantics to support your argument, but make sure that you understand that that is what I'm ruling on, is the argument for most improved. So open forum, you guys have 5 minutes starting now.
Okay, Tyrese, for starters, I don't think he's a great actor. I just think he's a likable actor. And he really wants that Green Lantern role. So I say, why not give him a shot? As far as him being in a Pirates of the Caribbean movie, those films are fucking garbage, in my opinion. I watched the first two. I hated them. I haven't watched any of them since. So I don't think there's any upside to him joining that franchise that is essentially dead. But Jon Stewart, I could see him really actually pulling off something pretty good in the Green Lantern franchise. He could put, the DCEU is known to be, dark and grim. I think he can bring some of that, joy to the role and hope that, Superman doesn't so much. I think he would be a really solid Jon Stewart.
Unfortunately, when it comes to the DC universe right now, however they want to word it with the movies that they're coming out with, Tyrese Gibson is not that great of an actor. He will not, with him in it, it would be just the same as Ryan Reynolds. Granted, Ryan Reynolds was okay at best in that movie. He wasn't the worst part by far. But unfortunately, the DC universe needs all the help it can get, and it can't afford overacting in one of its main superheroes. So unfortunately, I do have to disagree with Tyrese Gibson being placed in there. Yes, he wants it. You don't always get what you want, especially with everything that's going on in his life right now and how he's handling it professionally. You probably don't want to bring that on into your franchise, your universe. When it comes to Pirates of the Caribbean, they're a guilty pleasure of mine. I know they're bad, but in all honesty, Tyrese Gibson, with a little bit of his overacting, pair him up with Johnny Depp and Jack Sparrow, maybe he'll be a bit better on the screen than some of the main characters they've had in the last several of the movies. And yeah, I would not say that the Pirates of the Caribbean movies are a dead franchise. Earlier this year, they had a movie that made some money. Granted, it wasn't as big a hit as the other ones, but still well alive.
To touch on the part about, you say he overacting, I think that's really just his character that's in the Fast and Furious films because I've seen him in a couple other films such as Baby Boy, and I don't think he played that role in that film as overacting in it. So I think that's just something that he applies to his character in the Fast and Furious films.
And yeah, he's going to take that a little bit more seriously that way there. But if you look at any of the other movies that are franchises that he's been in, the Transformers movies, you can't tell me that he wasn't comedically overacting in those first couple of movies that he was in, and he was, and it was not good. Like I remember the one scene where they're being attacked in the desert, and he's like, "In my back pocket, in my back pocket," and he's just like completely you're in a war situation, and you're being attacked by these giant metal monsters, and you're just trying to be.
Yes, he has overacted in some of the films, but I think he's really kind of came into the role with each movie. Whereas if you put him in a Pirates movie, I'm sorry, I don't see him as a pirate. I don't think he could play that at all.
How many? There's not a lot of people in that movie that you could see as pirates, and yet they were. So it doesn't matter, and in all honesty, it will help the franchise just that little bit more to give that little bit of a boost. And in all honesty, it's not going to hurt the acting in that movie. You're not going in there to see good acting. His star power might be able to give that movie a little bit more of a presence.
Tyrese giving a new Pirates movie a little bit of a boost is not enough because it's a failing franchise that needs big time help that Tyrese wouldn't provide.
All right, I'm gonna call it right there. I'm gonna call it there. Call it right there. It's all right. We're gonna go to Chris for closing arguments. So Mark, make sure you save the point you were just about to say. We're gonna go to Chris for closing arguments, guys. I'm gonna be honest, this one's really close. So closing arguments could cinch it one way or the other for me. So Chris, go ahead with your closing argument.
Like I said before, Tyrese has been campaigning for that Green Lantern role for a few years now. I think he'd actually be pretty solid in the film. He could bring some of that joyful acting that he brings to the Fast and Furious franchise, and I just don't see him being able to play a pirate in a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I think it would be really cornballish, to be honest.
All right, strong points there. And Mark for a closing argument.
Oh no, acting in a Pirates of the Caribbean movie a little bit cornballish? You're expecting the wrong franchise there, buddy. And I'm sorry to tell you this. When it comes to Tyrese Gibson, the DC franchise, you say the Pirates needs all the help it can get. Warner Brothers needs people to take the DC franchise's movies pretty seriously. And all depending on how Justice League comes out right now, they can't afford to have Tyrese Gibson being his cornballish acting and a little bit overacting comedically in one of their main stars that A, they have to recover from the first Green Lantern movie, and B, I lost my.
It's all right. We can call it there. We'll call it there. This one's.
I think people take Wonder Woman seriously.
Till the end.
That's a different discussion for a different day. That was really close. You guys both, I think, had pretty good parts of your own argument, and both of you, I think both of you actually had really good attacks against one another as well, which I think that was the first time we've seen that. So this was definitely the closest of all of them. I really liked what Mark was saying about how even if you can make the Pirates movies just a little bit better, that'll be helpful. You know, people don't hate them, and you know the DC might not be able to afford it. But I actually think I'm going to go with Chris on this one. He was saying how Jon Stewart's been campaigning for this role. He's a likable actor. You know, he's not always overacting. So that was the point made against how the DCU can't afford it. I think Mark hung a little bit in there on his closing argument on Justice League and how, you know, maybe they don't, or the DCU isn't taken seriously. Maybe it might be good now. I just thought Mark lost a little bit of steam in his closing argument, and I think Chris really cinched it up well. So I'm going to give that point to Chris.
By far, I was prepared to lose that one there. I'm just not a fan of Tyrese Gibson.
Yeah. All
yeah,
right.
let me say, he's not like a top 10 actor for me.
Yeah. All right, which means we're going to have at least one speed round question. If Mark hits the first speed round question, at that point it's going to be over. But if Chris hits a couple, he can come back for this. Chris would need to hit all three to win, is what it comes down to right now. So how the speed round's going to work, I'm going to say the question. You guys are each going to give your answer. Whoever answered first is going to be the one to speak first. You're going to have 30 seconds each, and then 15-second rebuttals is how I'm going to rule it. I don't know if that's the official ruling, but that's what I'm doing for speed round. We're going to do 30-15, and yeah, let's get right into it. The first speed round question is open-ended, so I am going to ask you the question. You guys need to shout out an answer. And if you need to take a little bit of time to brainstorm, go ahead. But once again, you know, it's a speed round, so use your time wisely.
Okay.
So here we go. What two actors have the best chemistry in a movie?
Crush,
Anthony Daniels and Kenny Baker.
In what movie?
The Star Wars franchise.
Okay.
All
right.
my answer is Paul Walker and Vin Diesel.
Whoa. Hard hitters for both of you. Mark, you answered first. So we're going to go with you. Let me get 30 seconds on the clock. You have 30 seconds starting now.
Just for clarification, when it comes to, can I use the Star Wars franchise or just New Hope?
If you guys are both arguing a franchise, you can both use a franchise. Okay. But if Chris is only using one movie, then you have to use one movie.
Okay.
So Chris, are you doing the whole franchise?
We can do franchise.
All right. So Fast and Furious franchise versus Star Wars franchise. That works for me. 30 seconds starting now.
Kenny Baker and Anthony Daniels have been working together since up until Kenny's unfortunate passing last year. They've been working together in the Star Wars franchise since 1977. And those two are there's a lot of good chemistry in the Star Wars franchises and a lot of good chemistry out there from different actors. But when it comes to behind the scenes, they have some issues with each other, but on screen, when you put R2-D2 and
Time. That's 30 seconds. Woodburn, over to you for 30 seconds.
Okay, so in the first Fast and Furious movie, we had Vin Diesel and Paul Walker. They were really solid together. But then in the next two films, neither of them complimented each other until we got back to Fast and Furious, and the franchise has been thriving ever since. And they ended on such an incredible note in Fast 7, you know, with Paul Walker's untimely death. And in Part 8, the magic was really gone from that film that was left by Paul Walker not being in that film.
Okay.
Time. All right, hold up. I just have to say, you guys are each gonna have 15 seconds here. Use your time wisely. I need to hear some good points against the other one as well as supporting your own. Keep that in mind. Mark, 15 seconds.
As you said it in those couple Fast and franchise movies, they don't have the good chemistry with each other. Every movie R2-D2 and C-3PO are in, the back and forth, the banter. The brotherhood that they share between each other is just absolutely fantastic.
Time. And I accidentally gave him a couple seconds because I was writing, so Woodburn, I'm going to do the same for you. You have about 18 seconds.
Okay, yes, R2D2 and C3PO were great, but they didn't have the best chemistry in the Star Wars films. Han and Luke together were complete magic. Whereas with Paul Walker and Vin Diesel, they were great in the first movie, then they weren't together for 2 films, and then they came back together, and then it brought the franchise back to life, and it's a
Time.
billion-dollar franchise.
Time. Whew. All right. I tell you what, for a majority of that round, I was leaning one way. But man, Chris's closing argument cinched it for me. The hardest hit was saying that they didn't have the best chemistry in the Star Wars franchise, and he gave specific examples for who was better. So for that was a huge hit for Chris. We're going to give that one to Chris. And let me make a note of that. Alrighty, once again, Mark, if you hit, you win. Chris, you need to hit it to stay alive. Alrighty, this one is an either or. I'm basically going to read the question and name 2 movies. You guys have to name one out and then argue for that. Sound fair?
Yep.
Alrighty. Which Adam Sandler movie should get a reboot first? Click or Bedtime Stories?
Click.
I heard click for Mark, which means, Chris, you're going to be arguing for Bedtime Stories.
No problem.
All right, 30 seconds, Mark, whenever you're ready.
Click. Hey, you got Adam Sandler and Christopher Walken. Those two, the script was pretty bad, but those two chemistry was good, and also a universal remote that can do anything. You could tell infinite number of stories, and a hugely entertaining story with just a little bit of screenwriting.
And time. All right, over to Chris, 30 seconds.
Bedtime Stories was a complete train wreck of a film, whereas Click, I actually liked Click. That I liked. Bedtime Stories failed on all levels, and Adam Sandler has been drowning in mediocrity pretty much ever since that film hit. So it desperately needs a reboot.
Still got time. 8 seconds.
Oh.
That's
Adam
right.
Sandler.
Time there. It's all good. And, all right, 15 seconds left. Make sure you guys are getting some points in against one another. 15 seconds, Mark.
Okay, Click is, like I said, all you have to do is just rewrite the story a little bit, and you can remake a good movie. As you said, Bedtime Stories is an absolute garbage. No one's going to give a damn if you remade it or not. No one's going to care because of the history. And also...
Time. Alrighty, Chris, you got 15 seconds.
People may not be excited for a Bedtime Stories reboot, but it's not necessarily crucial to reboot Click, because in my opinion, I think it's actually a decent film. Whereas Bedtime Stories failed on all accounts.
Time. All right. Okay, there was 1 point made by one of you guys in the first 30 seconds of your opening argument there. And it was about the stories that could be told. I'm going to have to give that one to Mark. He just said the premise was so deserving of a reboot, where Chris was saying that it was bad, so it needed a reboot. And Mark followed that up by saying, oh, if it's bad, nobody's going to care. So I thought that first hit by Mark, the stories that could be told, was such a strong point. I'm going to give that one to Mark. And with that, Mark is going to take the win. Alrighty.
Good job, Chris.
Amazingly well fought to both of you. Chris really started to come back in that speed round. That was a great fight by both of you. I'm sure we'll see both of you back here again. And before we officially head out, just give yourselves a quick plug. Mark, our winner today, the Canadian Nightmare, where can we find you?
Either you can, as most of you guys probably know, you can find me anywhere. I'm one of the admin of the Full Metal Trivia team. Check us out on Facebook. I help out a lot with the Smalls Bros guys. Check them out on Facebook. They do wrestling, movies, and Inner Geekdom Trivia. They're really starting to come into their own, and I'm well happy to be a part of their team. However I can. Go check them out on Facebook, Smoes Bros Trivia, and check out Film Nerd on YouTube, and also Full Metal Trivia on YouTube. Join their league, have some fun.
All right, awesome. And Chris, where can we find you around?
You can find me on Twitter at Chris Woodburn83. You can find me on YouTube and Facebook at Christopher Woodburn. I'm also the commissioner of the the Movie Trivia Schmodown Reaction League. Come on over if you're doing reactions. Come join us. We also do trivia matches every Friday. It's a lot of fun.
All right, awesome. And I have been Robert the Hobbit Parker. You can follow me on Twitter and Letterboxd at RBRTPRKR98. It's a confusing handle. Get over it. So you can find me here hosting a couple of matches. You can find me over sparsely. I'm right now in the playoffs over at There Will Be Trivia. But yeah, you can find me here. Make sure you guys check out all of the other matches on Movie Battleground. We have a lot of great content here, a lot of great fights, just like this one we had for you today. And on behalf of the rest of the admins here at Movie Battleground, on behalf of myself, and on behalf of the fighters here today, I'm Robert Parker, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.